Every year, the Dominican College of Tarlac holds an Acculturation Day for the parents and the new students. Its objective is to introduce the new students to the existing culture of the school in terms of values, practices, and school rules and regulations. The activity starts the interaction among these new students with their facilitators and other members of the Dominican community. This is to somewhat orient them and let them know the roles and expectations that they are expected to fulfill. And this is connected to our today's lesson, which is Socialization and Enculturation.
Good day. I am James Raffle A. Sigat, and here I am to discuss to you Socialization and Enculturation. But first, what is socialization? It is the process through which people learn to understand the societal norms, expectations, and values as members of society. It is a lifelong social process where people develop their individual potentials and learn and adapt culture. The personal development of people is dependent on this process. Socialization starts when a baby is born and ends upon death. It is strengthened by human interactions, especially those that are significant enough to have an effect on a person's belief system or behavior. So, socialization is never ending. It only ends when we die. It has an impact on how we live, on how we make relationships, on how we meet people, and it also has an impact on our personal development. Because let's face it, we socialize a lot. Enculturation, on the other hand, is a process by which an individual adapts the behavior patterns of the culture in which a person is immersed. It is a process where an individual or group learn culture through experience or observation. Enculturation is an important part of socialization because it enables culture to be shared among members of society. It enables one to acquire unique qualities, which are common to a specific social group. Embracing a culture, therefore, could be likened to a valid group membership. Enculturation. We have a lot of cultures in our society. Sa Pilipinas, napakaraming kultura. Ito nga sa sinabi ni Zarina sa unang part, sa introduction. The school has an enculturation process every start of the school year. Nalalaman ng mga estudyante doon yung mga kultura ng mga school, ng mga students, and it applies to our country. Kapag nasa ibang bansa ako, iba yung kultura nila. Ma-adapt ko yung culture nila, and pwede din na mayroon ako ibang kasama, and hindi lang naman ako, so a group kami. Ma-adapt namin yung culture ng iba. That's what you call enculturation. Now, let's analyze the differences and relationships of socialization and enculturation. Socialization has a Philippine society. On the other hand, enculturation or culture has many cultures within Philippine society. Socialization consists of people or members, and enculturation consists of attitudes, opinions, beliefs, values, behaviors, and others. Socialization formally teaches people upon birth how to be good members of society through education, laws, and norms. For example, a girl learns her fundamental right as a member of society. And enculturation teaches members to learn languages, morals, behaviors, and values that are accepted in society. For example, a young boy develops his ideas about manhood and his culture. Socialization takes place through more specific training and instruction, while enculturation involves a general enclosing of individuals and the content of their culture. Socialization has the goal to control society, while enculturation has the goal to form an identity and to know the rules and values of a distinct culture. So, based on the chart, we can analyze that there has differences, but there also has slight similarities between socialization and enculturation. And it has parallels because they are connected.
Socialization and enculturation. Identity formation. And within that, there is our identity, discipline, and aspirations. Identity formation starts when one learns to socialize and be aware of the cultures, behaviors, language, morals, and norms of where he or she belongs in. In layman's terms, this is where we form our sense of identity, whether it be culturally, personally, or our formation of our own self-belief. Identity. Identity is what makes a person distinct from others. It is the total knowledge and understanding of an individual about who or she is. Simply explained, this is our understanding of our own self and what makes us unique from others. There are generally two types of personality, which is the personal identity and cultural identity. Personal identity, the concept an individual develops about himself. It is the sense of oneself as a distinct or unique individual, or it may depend on the age and circumstance of a person. This also refers to the skin color, the place of residence, manner of spending time, personal beliefs, personal style and choice of clothing, personal way of interacting with others. So, to put it simply again, personal identity is just the basic understanding of yourself, whether it be your personal choices, your place in the society, your place in your personal life, your interpersonal and interpersonal relationships with others. For example, one is a Filipino boy. He is the most quiet student in his class. He believes that time is gold, so he spends his free time studying his lessons. Cultural identity. This is the identity of a culture to which a person belongs in. This is the feeling or sense of belongingness to a group. It is also a collective sense of companionship that involves the same beliefs, interests, and fundamental principles of living. Refers to structural or religious belief, cultural clothings, hairstyle and body arts, types of food and drinks, ways of living, and etc. To put it in a simple understanding, this is a sense of identity in which culture a person belongs in. There are many cultures. For example, there are many cultures here in the Philippines. There are the Ifagaos, the Pajaos, Kapampangans, the Tagalogs, the Ilocanos, where we display a different variety of cultures, where we as a Filipino display or exhibit on a daily basis. For me, I'm a Kapampangan. So I eat Kapampangan food, speak of the Kapampangan dialect rather, and live like a Kapampangan. Diving deeper in the aspect of personal formation, there is discipline. This is the way of behaving that expresses a willingness to obey the rules or laws. It is the behavior that is judged by how well a person follows a set of rules or orders. In every civilization, society, or community, there are always rules to be followed and laws to be obeyed. And we humans naturally follow these rules and laws so that we avoid punishment and consequences. That is called discipline. There are three kinds of discipline: discipline of culture and society, discipline of nature and reality, and discipline of superior force. Discipline of culture and society is when a person learns according to what he or she sees in the society or culture. We humans have the tendency to mirror other humans depending on what their culture is and what society they belong in. And that is the essence of discipline of culture and society. Discipline of nature and reality is when a person submits this kind of control every time he or she tries to do things on his or her own without the supervision of others. The discipline of superior force is when a person learns through supervision and guidance of someone, superior or in authority. This is the most common philosophical reason on why humans follow the rules and laws and be submissive to the people in authority, because the people who are superior than us and the people who are in authority have the power to control the crowd and make us obey in accordance with their rules that are set. The last aspect of personal formation is aspiration. Aspiration is a strong desire and ambition with which someone is motivated to work hard. We humans have all the purpose in every act that we do. And every move that we make, there is a reason for it. For example, I go to school so in hopes that I finally graduate and provide for my family. I go to the gym so I can have a strong and fit body. These reasons are my motivation behind my aspirations. For example, Rico, at 20 years old, identified himself as happy-go-lucky guy. He might discover that at 35 years old, he is a different person. Perhaps he is living a good life with his family. He would like his children to have a comfortable life in the future. The change that he made is because of his children, so that they can have a stable future. Instead of being a happy-go-lucky guy, he chose to be a responsible and thoughtful father for his children. As we progress through time and as we grow old, we need to develop or progress our personal identity and aspirations. There are many ways to develop these aspects of our lives. It may be through enculturation and socialization. It may also come through observation of a role model. You tend to imitate a successful person that leads to changes in your personality and your aspirations. Your personal identity may change, and eventually, You may develop a clear sense of yourself.
Now I'm going to discuss about the socialization and enculturation that is centered towards the norms and values. First, the norms are the standards or the set of accepted behaviors that a person is expected to follow or exemplify in the society where he or she belongs in. It pertains to specific guidelines of conduct in society that guides its members on how to act in a particular situation. So, ang norms ay ito yung mismong standards na madalas na nating pina-follow kasi ito yung ina-expect ng society na kailangan natin gawin para hindi tayo tignan sa in a different way. So, bale, if we're following yung mismong norms ng society, then we're good. So, what are the two types of norms? So, norms are either formal or informal. For the formal norms, they are written down and involve strict values for punishment. For example, law. So, these are they are made by the government. So, we are following these formal norms na nalagay sa mismong formally, such as yung mga Republic Act na nakikita natin. And then, for informal norms, they are understood but are not precisely recorded. For example, the standard of proper dressing. So, when we say the proper dressing, no, now we are living in a very conservative country. So, therefore, hindi siya nakalagay sa mismong strict wala siyang punishment. But rather, ito yung mismong standard ng society. Kasi kapag hindi ka, halimbawa, hindi ka nagsuot properly, nagsuot ka ng bikini, like in a mall, mas pagtitinginin ka na ng may ibang tao. So, therefore, yun ang informal norms. So, norms are also categorized by the relative importance to society, the folkways, mores, taboos, and laws. The folkways are the customs of the people that came from the repetition and routines. Say, for example, the practice of waiting in line and courtesy shown to older people. For mores, these are the stricter than folkways. So, therefore, mas strict ito. It determines what is moral and ethical behavior. It dictates what is right and what is wrong. Say, for example, the religious doctrines such as the prohibition of premarital sex. The belief that the forms of discrimination and as well the belief of forms of discrimination and suppression are unethical. So, for example, racism and sexism. Therefore, these are yung mores, ito yung mismong behavior na super strict at kung saan they are very deeper than the folkways. Taboos, they are very negative norms. It refers to the strict prohibition of certain behaviors that society holds firmly. Violating it results in extreme disgust or expulsion from the group of society. For example, cannibalism and incest. So, taboos, when we say taboos, these are the norms na somehow hindi pinag-usapan, but it's already understood na it's very, disgusting, so, or at the same time, ito yung talagang understood talaga na mali. Laws. Laws are formally instituted by the government. It exists because its violation can result to harm or injury to other members of society. There are imposed sanctions on the people who disobey the authority. For example, law against domestic violence, curfew for minors. The values. Values refers to the abstract idea of people about what is necessary or worthwhile. Values are general guidelines that are fundamental parts of our lives. They stand for the things we believe in. Most of the values we have learned from family, friends, school, media, and other sources of society. So when we say values, these are yung mga tinuturo sa atin ang mismong friends natin from the start, and at the same time, nade-develop ito through our school, friends, and through social media. These are the good things that we need to seek in our minds and in our hearts. So, classification of values. So, when we say values, they are classified into two different values. So, it's different individual values rather and collective values. For individual values, these are the values concerned with the development of human personality, say for example, honesty, loyalty, and honor. And meanwhile, the collective values are connected with the development of unity and harmony in the society, for example, equality, justice, and solidarity. So therefore, the individual is actually centered to oneself, while the collective values are centered towards many.
Okay, so moving forward, we have what we call statuses and roles. So firstly, what is a status? A status describes the position of an individual in a particular setting, in a group, or in a society. It defines and clarifies the rights and obligations expected from a person. So basically, these are like titles or occupations that have a corresponding role and obligation. For example, is a farm boy, a mother, a teacher, or a human rights defender. But the status doesn't just end there. There are actually three classifications of statuses. So first is the ascribed status, second is a chief status, and the third is the master status. An ascribed status is a position a person holds in a social system that one attains involuntarily or by birth. It is inherited, and it is not based on a person's abilities, accomplishments, or efforts. It can be rigid and unchanging since it is given to a person when he is born, or it is often involuntarily attained. So basically, these are statuses that we don't really have a choice whether we like them or not. It is given to us at birth. For example, is a girl who grew up in a farm, a Filipino national, a king or queen, or a son of a vendor. So these are like the first statuses that we have. And then moving forward is the achieved status. This, on the other hand, is a position that one holds in a social system that one attains based on merit or effort. It is acquired due to unique skills, knowledge, or abilities, and are based on standards that can be controlled. It is a position that has been earned or chosen and is mostly dedicated by ability, skills, and life choices. For example, is a farm boy who became an agriculturist, a student that became an employee and a doctor, and an artist or an athlete. On simple terms, these are like the statuses that can be achieved through hard work. These are statuses that are dashed with one's abilities, skills, and life choices. Following that is the master status. This is actually the greatest role in a person's life that determines social identity and general position in society. It can be based on any status such as gender, ethnicity, economic status, religious or spiritual tradition, employment status, or family responsibilities such as a parent or a grandparent. It may come with a sense of prestige for some reason, the consensus from the community around them that a status is to be desired. Examples for these roles are a well-known environmentalist, a CEO, an activist, a pope, or an Olympic gold medalist. So it is safe to say that these are actually the highest status that one can achieve if they flourish on the status that they have initially. And related to statuses are what we call roles. So what are roles? So roles are expectations that are set for a person given the status that he or she occupies. It pertains to the norms, behaviors, values, and personal characteristics that are attached to the status of the person. So as said earlier, a status has something that we expect from, and these are what we call the roles. So, for example, a person with a status of being a student has a role of attending classes, studying lessons, and communicating with teachers. A person with a status of being a teacher is expected to do his or her role of teaching, giving feedback, assessing, or evaluating the performance of his or her students. And an employed call center agent has a role of answering questions and solving problems, including research information. I actually personally like to associate role and status, status and role with cause and effect. So status is like the cause and the effect is like the role. Or because and therefore. Because of this status, one is expected to perform this type of role. So moving forward, we have the classification of status with the corresponding roles. So for the ascribed, if a status is a farm boy, then the corresponding role is planting the crops or tilling the soil. For the achieved, if the status is an agriculturist, the role is studying and developing the best practices for raising livestock and growing crops. And on the other hand, for master status, we have the status of an environmentalist ecologist, which has the corresponding role of protecting the environment and alerting the people to environmental issues. With that being said, there are actually issues concerning status and roles. So one type is a role strain. It occurs when there is tension involved within just one status. Example is if a professor cannot engage in a close friendship with any students to maintain standard for respect and professionalism. I like to personally think of this as the limits that the status have when it comes to interacting with other statuses. It is probably in conflict with the roles that they play among each other or other factors. This is followed by role exit, which pertains to the course of disengaging of a person from his or her role that is essential to his or self-identity. For example, is a professional basketball player that retires and focuses on business, an actress who needs to leave the showbiz industry due to untimely pregnancy. So these are instances when one chooses to leave their status for personal reasons, which is followed by role conflict, which arises when incompatible expectations occur from two or more statuses that a person is occupying. Performing the role of one status makes it challenging to perform the role of another status. For example, it is very challenging for a woman to be a best mother and the best employee of all at the same time. Or simply the conflicts between the two statuses and the roles that they have. And that is actually the end of our lesson. But before we part ways, I would like to ask you a question. Why do you think is it important for us citizens to play our roles and statuses accordingly to society? Think about it. So, yeah, that's actually it for our presentation. Thank you for listening and tuning in to us. Bye!